Welcome everyone to our Sunday service, and to those online, thank you for joining us. My name is Dharma Devi. This is Nayaswami Shivani. And this week's topic is to each according to his faith. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John, chapter 3, we read, "Everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God." It is a common experience shared by most people that when a person errs, he experiences a desire to hide that error from his conscience instead of holding it up for purification. Error clutches its misdeeds to itself and resists correction, though it is only in the state of purity that we can achieve perfect freedom. It requires an active will to offer that awareness up to the light and to hold it there until one's inner darkness is completely dissipated. For every state of consciousness has its own attractive power, and the more we allow that attraction to act upon us, the more we attract to ourselves the objective circumstances and experiences natural to it. Our faith is the attractive power of our underlying state of consciousness. Goodness attracts goodness. It takes goodness even to see goodness. Evil attracts evil, and it takes evil even to see evil. That is, to take special note of its existence. Whatever there is in you of darkness or light, offer it up to the heights. In the supreme light alone, we will find salvation. Accept nothing less in yourself as your lasting reality. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 12th chapter, "Cling thou to me. Clasp me with heart and mind. So shalt thou dwell surely with me on high. But if thy thought droops from such heights, if thou beest weak to set body and soul upon me constantly, despair not. Give me lower service. Seek to reach me, worshiping with steadfast will. And if thou canst not worship steadfastly, work for me. Toil in works pleasing to me. For he that laboreth right for love of me shall finally attain. But if in this thy faint heart fails, bring me thy failure." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
It's very interesting, I think, the ways in which mankind perceives of God, the way that we imagine him. And in the Old Testament, it says that man is made in the image of God. Yogananda used to often say, well, we've done an awfully good job in making over God in our image. And we see this quite a bit in the Old Testament. I mean, what kind of God do we often see there? You know, it's the wrathful, vengeful, condemning God. I live in Italy, and I really enjoy the artwork, all periods of art, you know, in Italy, from the old times, especially up through the Renaissance. And often you'll go, and especially if you go to the Vatican and go into the Sistine Chapel, the famous painting on the ceiling of Michelangelo of the Last Judgment. And there we have God creating, but we have God condemning, you know, putting the sinners down in hell and the saved, letting them walk up the ladder towards heaven. This isn't a very comforting image of God, is it? Yeah. Not somebody to whom you would think, as Jesus said, you know, bring me You're halt, you're lame, you're blind, and I will offer them comfort. Yogananda has a much different way of perceiving God. He says, amongst other things, that God is playful. He plays with us. And one of the games, Yogananda says, that he plays is hide and seek. Remember that game? Okay. And Yogananda has written many beautiful poems, and some of them are contained in this book of his, Whispers from Eternity. And I'd like to read you just a little bit of a poem that I find absolutely delightful, and I like to read it from time to time, and I'd like to share just a bit of it. Its name, when it was originally published in Songs of the Soul back in the 1920s, was "Hello, Playmate, I Am Here." I knew that thou wert always near, as if playing hide and seek with me, receding each time when I almost touched thee. I groped for thee in the maddeningly complex folds of dark ignorance, as old as time itself is old. At last, I ceased my search, almost in despair. What hope had I of finding thee, thy royal sly eluder? Thou art, I know, everywhere, yet thou seemst nowhere, lost in unplumbed space. When none may clasp thee or behold thy face. Yet, despairingly, I ceased my fruitless search, turned huffily away from thee. And then, lo, suddenly, unheralded, an unseen hand snatched from my eyes that all-black band which had blinded me so long with fold on fold. No longer weary, but filled with strength untold, I stood and gazed again. A laughing sea instead of wrathful roars, a gay, glad world with mystically opening doors, with only mists of dreams in between. Someone beside me stood unseen and whispered to me, calm and clear, "Hello, playmate, I am here." Well, this is my kind of God. This is a wonderful God who is hiding and yet present everywhere. And it's our job in life to go out and find that presence. There's a story they tell in India about a guru who has 3 disciples. Maybe he had more, but in this story he has 3. And he gives them a test, a job to do. Can't think of the word in English, a compito. And an assignment, thank you. He gives them an assignment. And to each of them, he gives a banana. And he says, I want you to go and hide this banana where no one will find it. And when you do come back, and the one who completes this assignment successfully and first, I will give him the touch of bliss. And so the 3 disciples set out, and one of them goes to the ocean. And he knows how deep the ocean is, and he looks, and there's nobody around, and he takes the banana with all of his strength. He throws it into the depths, and he comes back, and he's the first one back. And he says, okay. And the guru says, be patient, let's wait for your brothers. So the second one went up into the mountains, and he found a very deep cave. Perhaps before he became a disciple, he had been a spelunker. So down he went into this cave, deep, 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 and he took his banana and he hid it under a rock in a crevice. And he came back and was a little discouraged to see that one of his brothers was already there. But the guru said, it's fine, you just sit down, we'll wait for the third brother. Well, they waited all day, and the brother didn't come, and the night passed, and still he hadn't arrived. And at first light in the morning, here comes a disciple hanging his head, walking very slowly, and he still has the banana. And the other brothers, they're smirking about it, They don't know which one of the two of them is going to get the touch of bliss, but they know that this poor guy, he lost. And so the guru welcomes the third brother, and he says, "My son, come here. I see you still have the banana." And the disciple, he said, "Yes, Master, I'm sorry. I just couldn't do what you asked me to do." And the Master said, "But why? Both of your brothers came back without their banana." And the disciple said, "But Master, I went everywhere. I went to the sea, I went to the mountains, I went to the plains. I went everywhere. And everywhere I went, God was watching." So to him, the Master gave the touch. In India, they have a totally different way of perceiving God than we do in the Judeo-Christian Western world. They see God as their playmate. They see God as their child. They see God as their parent. They see God as their friend. And in India, there are so many images of God. In the Hebrew tradition, also in the Muslim, it's forbidden to make an image of God. And there's a lot of truth in that, isn't there? Because really, God can't be properly depicted. But in India, they think differently. But God is everywhere. God is in everything. God is in the elephant, and they have Ganesha, and God is in the mountain, and they have Shiva and Kubera, and God is in the river, and they have the goddess Ganges. By the way, does anybody know, here's a little trivia, spiritual trivia. Each of the goddesses is riding an animal. Okay? Durga is riding a lion. What is the goddess Ganges riding? No. No. Yes. Okay. A little bit of spiritual truth. That's how you can, a crocodile. That's how you can always tell the goddesses, because really they kind of look alike. They're beautiful and they're fair skinned and they have lots of arms and they're doing lots of things, which is what women do in the world, isn't it? They're fair, beautiful, and they do things. But the way you can tell the difference is what the goddess is riding. And I didn't know this, and I saw this goddess on a crocodile, and I said, "Oh, it must be wrong. Durga rides a lion." And they said, no, this is the goddess Ganges. In India, they understand that God and divinity and spirituality is all about relationships and how we relate to each other, how we relate to the divine, to the infinite. And one of the most touching things about the stories of Krishna, Lord Krishna, who in India is like Christ here for us. Well, they have all kinds of stories about Krishna, and we see Krishna in relationship with so many different people, always divinely playful. We see Krishna as a little baby, Gopal, and he's just so mischievous, and he goes and he steals the butter and he steals the yogurt and he breaks down the pots so that the yogurt can come on him and he licks it up. Oh, he's just such a naughty child. And is God a baby? Well, of course. Is God in our children? Well, of course. And that's where we need to find and to love him. Well, then Krishna had all of these little friends, the gopis and the gopas, and they were the cowherds, and they would go off, and they were supposed to be watching the cows, but they would play together and leave the cows alone. And one day they left the cows alone. They were off playing with Krishna, and here comes Brahma, the creator, and he steals the cows, and he hides them. And when the gopis come looking for the cows, he steals the gopis and he hides them. And there's just Krishna. And Krishna comes back and he looks around. No gopis, no cows. He says, Brahma's playing a trick on me. So what does he do? He recreates every cow and every gopi just exactly as they were, but he infuses himself his bliss, his joy in them. And so the newly created Krishna gopis and Krishna cows go back to their village. And all of a sudden, the cows are giving more milk. And the gopis are kinder to the parents. And for a whole year, the whole village is just in joy because everything is so much better. And then the story goes on, and Brahma comes back, and that part of the story is nice but not important for us. What's important is that when God, creates us in his image, and when we let ourselves be created in his image, everything is better. We experience that joy, that infinitude, that bliss, that light, if we let ourselves be made in his image instead of trying to make him over in our image of anger and despair and all of these things. There's a story, a sweet story about one of Krishna's let me go on. Krishna is so many other things, too. I mean, he grows up and then he slaves the evil demons. So he's the savior. He saves people. And then he becomes he is the relative of the famous Pandava brothers, the one who fight the great war in the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. And he becomes the best friend of Arjuna, and we'll talk about Krishna as the friend and counselor. But Krishna, or God, is all of these things. He can be all of these things to us. Our child, our lover, our friend, our counselor, our relative. Well, one of his great devotees was wife to the Pandava brothers, and her name was Draupadi. And it's a very long story, the Mahabharata, but in this one scene, which is perhaps the most famous of all of the scenes in this great epic poem called Mahabharata, there's Draupadi, and she's really in trouble because the enemies of her husbands have defeated them, and one of the spoils of that defeat was she herself. And so these enemies have dragged her into a public arena, and they are trying to undress her. A public humiliation, just unbelievable. I mean, anywhere, but especially, in India, where men would never, touch or even look at a woman. So here she is, and the sari is a piece of cloth made up of 6 meters of fabric, and it's not attached, it's just kind of tucked in. And so they're pulling on her sari. And so she doesn't have much time. And she, 6 meters, it doesn't take long to take off 6 meters. And so she's calling on Krishna because she's very, very close to Krishna. And she starts out by saying, "Oh, Lord Krishna Gopal, come quickly and save me." So Krishna's on the other side of India in his kingdom, and he hears her right away. And he says, "Oh, Draupadi's calling me as Gopal. Does she want to play with me? Well, I've got to go find my toys. I haven't seen my toys in a while." So he goes off and, looking for his toys. And he's just taken a few steps when suddenly Draupadi calls him again. And she's going, "Oh, Lord Keshava, please come. I need you desperately." Well, Keshava is the name of Krishna with a very beautiful hair. And so Krishna thinks, well, she wants me to come, like for a portrait or something. So I've got to call my beautician, the guy who washes, oils my hair, and so he calls for them, and they're on their way when she changes her mind, and she calls him, "Krishna Murali, please come." Well, Murali is Krishna when he played the flute on the banks of the Yamuna River. So he says, "Oh, I understand. She wants a concert." But where did I put the flute? It's somewhere in the attic. So he sends one of his servants off to the attic. Then she calls him Krishna, King of Dwaraka. And he says, "What? I wish she could make up her mind. How does she want me to come?" And as a king, so it's an audience. So I need to get the crown. Where's the crown? I need to get the. And so Krishna's running here and there, and he's saying, "What does she want? What does she want?" And so in her final moment of desperation, she calls out loud, "Krishna Vasudeva, come and save me." And he appears instantly. And in appearing, he blesses her with an infinite sorry. So they're pulling, and no matter how much they pull on the cloth, she is still clothed. She remains eternally clothed in the blessing. And they're pulling in mountains of cloth. And it's really you can tell, a filmmaker would really like to like to make this scene very colorful and lots of. But Draupadi is really upset. She's grateful that Krishna finally came and saved her honor. But afterwards, she says, "Krishna, really, you could have come in the beginning. Why did you make me wait this whole time?" And he said, "Draupadi, I was really confused. I really didn't know how you wanted me to come. And I was running around trying to find all the things that were necessary. But when you called me Krishna Vasudeva, which means God who dwells in my heart, well, I was there instantly because I'm always in your heart." Okay, so long, colorful story, just to let us know that God is always here with us. We don't have to wait. And always willing to collaborate with us when we're in trouble and when we're not in trouble. Well, one of Draupadi's husbands was Arjuna, and perhaps you've heard his name. He's one of the famous characters in the Bhagavad Gita. And this is another very interesting scene, and a very famous one, where Krishna is driving the chariot of Arjuna into battle. And Arjuna has a lot of courage, and he is the most skilled archer of his time, and he's a great warrior. No one can come close to Arjuna, and so he feels very confident about this battle. But suddenly, when he asks Krishna to drive him out and take a look at who is gathered to fight for him and against him, he begins to lose heart. And because he sees that some of his relatives are allied against him, for reasons, very complicated reasons. And many of his friends are allied with him, but he just doesn't know what to do because he doesn't want to kill his friends or his relatives. And so the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is mostly, at least to a great part, Arjuna telling Krishna why he shouldn't fight and why war is not good and all of the reasons. And he goes on. And as he goes on, he himself becomes more and more discouraged. At the end of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is in such despair that he throws down his weapons and he sits down in total despair on the floor of the chariot. So that's it. He can't do it. As brave and as courageous as he is, the experience that he has, all of the years he spent preparing, all of the weapons that he acquired from the different gods. He has it all. But yet, he's in total despair. And then finally he turns to Krishna and he says, "Lord, I can't do this. I really can't. I ask you, who are my guru, I am your disciple. Tell me, what should I do?" And only then does Krishna begin to help him. And in the rest of the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the remaining 17 chapters, Krishna gives Arjuna advice for how to be successful in the battle of life, in every single thing. and he doesn't miss anything. The wisdom of the ages is contained in this one small scripture. But Krishna was silent the whole first chapter until Arjuna got to the point where he realized that no matter how great he was, no matter how prepared he was, he needed something else. And each one of us needs to get to that point. The point where we are self-reliant. It's very important that we learn to walk on our own 2 feet, that we are capable, that we learn things, that we have experience. This is part of our evolution. To learn to rely on ourselves and not be dependent on other things for our support, on other people, for our happiness, on what we do to give us a sense of self-worth and value. We need to learn to be independent. And this is so important in our evolution. But at that point, what are we going to do with our independence? You know, bringing this talk up to modern times, I think that, you know, modern technology is showing us that there are several ways that we can perceive life and live life and work in life. One is to be dependent on other people to do things for us. Okay? And this is something we're learning about filmmaking too. There's 3 ways to make a film. One is you just ask somebody and pay them and let them make the film for you because they know how to do it, and there it is. The second way is to try to do it yourself. Okay? And this is, as I said, a very important part of our evolution. This is kind of like the teenage stage. Do you remember when you were a teenager? I do. You know, I kind of had a mantra, Mother, I'll do it myself. You know, you're just tired of your parents. You know, they think that they always have to do everything, like you're still in diapers and they have to change you. But we get to the point, no, Mother, I will do it myself. And that's one of the stages. It's also a stage in filmmaking. It's called do it yourself. You know, it's DIY. That's what they call it. Do it yourself. And we do that. And we do it, and we learn that we can be successful sometimes, and many times we can't. And life will eventually take us to the same moment of despair that Arjuna was in, being the best warrior in the realm. It doesn't matter how good we are. I was talking to somebody the other day, and she said to me, I'm at the top of my game. You know, I didn't quite understand it, and I asked her what it was, and I understood what she was saying. You know, I have everything. You know, I have all of the experience and the talent and everything that I need. I'm at the top of my game. She's also unemployed. Okay, well, life brings us to that state, and then what are we going to do? How are we going to relate to ourselves and our lives? And this is where Arjuna was, and this is where we are when we realize that we could go to the computer and instead of figuring out everything for ourselves, we can ask Google. You know, we can Google it. And that there is a vast amount, there is a wealth of knowledge out there, far beyond our own capacity, and that we can tap into it. Now, Google is going to give us information. It's also, by the way, going to give us misinformation. But there's one thing that Google is not going to give us, and that's wisdom. The wisdom for how to live well, to live happily, the wisdom for how to succeed, the wisdom for how to have loving relationships. All of that wisdom is there for us to have. And how can we enter into contact with that wisdom? And that's the most important relationship, the most important way that we can and should perceive God, as Arjuna did with Krishna, as his best friend. Because God is Vasudeva. God is right here, wanting all the time to give us that advice. But just like Krishna, as long as Arjuna is talking, in the first chapter is a monologue, as long as we are in monologue, God, we're not open, we're not listening. When you talk, you don't listen. So this is what we want to do. We want to collaborate. We want to do things together. Okay? Google will give us information, but it's not going to be there for us when we need that support. And this is a beautiful way of living in collaboration with God. Many years ago, Swami Kriyananda wrote a wonderful course, which we study now. It's called The Science of Raja Yoga. And it took him a long time, together with God, to write that course. I think it was at least a year and a half, if not 2 or 3 years. And it's a stunning course. It's a brilliant, every page is really wonderful. Well, he finished the course after a long time, and he wanted to celebrate. He always does that. When he finishes a work which he's done inspired by God, then he wants to celebrate. Well, this time he decided he wanted to celebrate with Divine Mother alone, nobody else. So off he went, just on the spur of the moment, down to Carmel, a beautiful little place on the coast in Northern California. And because it was the spur of the moment, he hadn't made any arrangements. But he said, Divine Mother, let's go and have a good time together. I want to share this moment with you because you've been with me the whole time. This is your work. I've given it to you. Let's celebrate. So off he goes, and he goes to a very nice-looking hotel, and he walks in, asks for a room, and the desk clerk says, oh, I'm so sorry, I've just given away the last room. And I'm sorry because all of the hotels are filled. There's a convention in town. And Swami wasn't disappointed, but he just inwardly, he said, but Divine Mother, what is this? We're celebrating together. And the clerk went back, and then he came out again, and he said, sir, wait a minute. There is a room that we always reserve, just in case some important person, comes. And I feel that there's something important about you. I don't know what it is. And, my boss isn't here right now, so I'm going to give you that room. And so he did. And it was a gorgeous room. And so Swami was very happy. The Divine Mother really was actively participating in this holiday celebration. So off he went to a restaurant, and beautiful restaurant overlooking the ocean. And he was there by himself with Divine Mother, and he ordered some food, and the owner of the restaurant happened to be there. And he came over to the table, and he said, I recognize you. Aren't you Swami Kriyananda? I've read some of your books. And the owner sat down for a little while and talked with Swami, and then got up, and Swami and Divine Mother finished their meal, and then he went to pay. And the man said, no, it's really an honor to have you here in my restaurant. Don't pay. So Divine Mother really was outdoing herself. And to put the icing on the cake, when he went to pay the bill at the hotel, the man wouldn't let him pay. Okay, has it ever happened to anybody here? But when we live with God, God lives with us. He's our playmate. So often, as Master used to say, if you shut me out, how can I get in? And so often, our default in life is on our talents, what we're able to do, on our experience, or what other people say. But there is such a joy in living in collaboration, in friendship, in intimate friendship with God. George Washington Carver, perhaps you've heard this story. He was a great scientist. He was an agronomist. And he is credited with having discovered over 100 uses for the peanut and almost as many for the sweet potato, two plants that could grow quite easily in the poor soul in the South. This was after the Civil War. And George Carver himself his father had been a freed slave. So George was a great scientist. And he was in his laboratory, and every day he got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He would go out into the forest there. I think he was teaching at Tuskegee Institute at the time. He would go out in the forest, and he'd just go out and he'd talk with God. That's what he did every morning. That was his way of prayer. He'd go and talk with God. And there's a story about him that, one day he said, Lord, I want you to tell me something. And God said, yes, George, what is it? Lord, why did you make the universe? And God said, George, that's a very big question, and I don't know if you're prepared for the answer. And George said, well, okay, Lord, well, then I'll ask you another question. Why did you create man? George, that's a little better, but it's still much too big for you. You know, even if I told you, you wouldn't be able to understand. Do you have another question? Lord, why did you make the peanut? George, I can tell you that. And so that's how he said that he discovered over 100 uses for the peanut, because God was the peanut. God had made the peanut. God knows the secret. God knows everything. And when we live in that relationship, when we tap into the enormous wealth of everything that there is, our life just becomes ever so much better, and we become so much closer to God. There's a movie that I love a lot. I personally think it's one of the greatest movies that's ever been made. You might think I'm foolish, and I bet you saw it. I'm trying to think of the English name. It was called Chariots of Fire. You remember that? You know? Never forget the music, right? I mean, it was just everything. That movie was so sensitive, so beautifully made. Do you remember it? I'm going to tell you just one little thing about it. It's about two runners, two great runners, okay? And one of them they're both very good people, okay? It's not about one's good and one's bad. They're both very good people. But the difference in them is very important for us as spiritual seekers. One of the runners was a very ambitious man, and he had kind of a chip on his shoulder. He was living in an environment that was prejudicial, and there was much prejudice against him. And he needed for himself to show himself and to show others that he was the best. And so he trained, and he got a great trainer, and he was great. And he was the best in what he did. And so he was chosen, he was British, he was chosen to go to the Olympics. What year was it? 26? 1922, 26, right there. And then the story is about another runner, and he's Scottish. And do you remember this? And he's the son of a missionary. And, you know, his missionary father and the congregation, they're not keen on him, you know, going into competition. But he's such a fast runner. He's just so incredible. He has no training. He has no style. I mean, he runs in bad form, and he always wins. And so his father said, I think it's his father, it's his sister, they have a long conversation. She's trying, you should stay here and serve the Lord. And he says to her, sister, I am serving the Lord. And this is where I always cry. Because God made me fast. And when I run, I feel his glory in me. And that's why I run, for the glory of God. And remember how he used to run like this and hit his head up? He was just so beautiful. And anyway, they both win. You know, the story goes on, and for different reasons, the first guy wins his race, and the Scottish guy wins his race too. So they both win, but one of them wins because he's well trained, and the other one wins because of God. Because he lives constantly with God, in the glory of God. In Italian, the movie is called Momenti di Gloria, Moments of Glory. It's really beautiful. And it's a beautiful message for us, you know, and an image that we can always hold on to. I want to finish by reading a little story to you, a very short little story. Because when we have that relationship with God, that we're doing everything for the glory that we feel in us, we have that intimate relationship, there's nothing that we need to hide from God. We can bring anything to Him. And that's what today's reading is about, of just holding up to that light, that glorious presence, everything. And God will make us whole. This is a story. It's really a Christmas story, but I'm not sure I'm going to be here at Christmas time, so I want to read it to you now. Yeah, you can get out your Kleenex. I'll get out mine too. Okay. Okay. So this is Holy Night. This is the night of the birth of Jesus. The shepherds had gone, and it was nearly dawn outside the humble hut where he was born. The Christ child lifted his head, and looking towards the door, he saw a young boy, shy and fearful. "Come closer," said the Christ child. "Why are you afraid?" "Because I have not brought you anything," the boy responded. "But I would very much like to have something from you," the child in the manger said. Now the boy became worried. "I have nothing. I own nothing. If I had anything, I would give it to you." He searched through his pockets of the torn pants. "All I have is the blade of an old knife I found. You can have it." "No," said the child, "you keep it. I want something quite different from you. I want 3 things. "What can they be?" asked the boy. "Give me the last drawing you did." The boy turned red, and he was very embarrassed. In order to not let even Mary or Joseph hear him, he bent down and whispered to the Christ child. But that drawing was so bad that nobody even wanted to look at it. "That's why," said the child in the manger, "I will have this drawing. You should always bring me all that which others don't like in you, or what they find lacking in you." And then the Christ child continued, "I want your plate." "But I broke it this morning," the boy stuttered. "That's why I want it," said the Christ child. "You shall always bring me everything which is broken in your life. I will make it whole." And as a last gift, the Christ child said, "Now give me the answer to your parents when they asked you how you broke the plate." Now the boy became very sad, and he whispered, "I said I pushed the plate off the table by mistake, but that was a lie. In truth, I had thrown it down on the floor in anger." "That's what I wanted to know," said the Christ child. "Always bring me everything which is bad in your life, your lies, your excuses, your cowardice, your cruelty, and I will take them away. You don't need them. I will make you happy and will forgive you your mistakes again and again. From today onwards, you may come to me every day." So this is how we want to live. Every day, let's just bring everything to God and live in the glory of God who lives in our hearts. May God bless us all.
Feel the presence of God around us. Let's take up our offering, knowing that this offering is going to help spread these teachings in Los Angeles and around the world. Take what you'd like to give in your right hand and pray with me. Divine Mother, we offer to thee, the fruits of our labor. Receive this offering. May it serve to spread. Thy message of self-realization. To truth-seeking souls everywhere. Om. Peace.
I'd like to invite the singers to come and share with us another one of Swami's songs.
I'd like to offer another song by Swami Triyananda. This one is entitled God's Call Within.
Long your heart has played the dancer, long you've toyed with mirror's shadows of the treasures left behind you, deep in your soul. Long you've plumbed the dark for answers, long you've begged from beggars' empty hands, gifts of life they too were seeking, gifts none could share. Friend, how long will you wander? Friend, as long as you seek your home in a land where all are strangers, love locks her door. Leave to the weak his craving life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Turn, turn within, in silence of soul.